Dolly Parton, America's sweetheart and the undisputed queen of country music, has spent decades capturing hearts around the world with her voice and charm. But behind that dazzling smile lies a side of her story few have ever heard. A trail of tension, betrayal, and legendary feuds that never made it to the headlines. On stage and in front of the cameras, everyone seemed to adore her. They praised her in interviews, smiled next to her at award shows, and spoke of her like she could do no wrong. But behind the scenes, it was a very different story. Slammed doors, harsh words, and broken friendships. One singer swore they'd never work with her again. Another tried to steal her biggest hit. And though Dolly has done her best to keep it all hidden, the truth has finally come to light, revealing the 5 singers she could never stand working with. So, what really happened behind closed doors? And why are some of those old wounds still open today? Once you learn the truth, you'll never see Dolly Parton the same way again. Her rise to stardom is nothing short of extraordinary. Most people know her for the big blonde hair, the glittering outfits, and that angelic voice that can melt hearts. But few realize how much drama lies behind the spotlight. From a dirt-poor girl in rural Tennessee to one of the most iconic figures in music history, Dolly's journey has been full of struggles and surprises. She's built a reputation as the queen of kindness, someone who always keeps things positive. But even someone as sweet as Dolly has had her fair share of clashes in the industry. To understand who Dolly had friction with, you first have to understand her, a woman who avoids drama at all costs, yet somehow keeps finding herself at the center of it. Dolly Rebecca Parton was born on the 19th of January 1946 in a small one-room cabin in Locust Ridge, Tennessee. She grew up in a loving but struggling family with 12 children crowded into a simple mountain home. Her father, Lee Parton, was a hard-working farmer and construction man who couldn't read or write, but Dolly always said he was the smartest man she ever knew. Her mother, A.V. Lee, had 12 children before she turned 35, and she passed on her deep love for storytelling, music, and faith to Dolly. For the Parton, music wasn't just a hobby, it was survival. With no money for entertainment, the children learned to sing in church and harmonize on the porch. Dolly's family noticed her talent early. By age 10, she was performing on local radio and TV shows in Knoxville. And not long after, she took the stage at the Grand Ole Opry. The day after graduating high school in 1964, she packed a bag and left for Nashville with no money or connections, only her talent and big dreams. She started out writing songs for other artists, but Dolly wanted more than that. She wanted the spotlight. In 1967, she released her first country hit, Dumb Blonde, a clever song that showed she wasn't just a pretty face. That same year, she joined the Porter Wagoner Show, and from that moment, everything changed. Every week, millions tuned in to watch Dolly Parton light up their screens. Her duets with Porter Wagoner became instant hits. Fans couldn't get enough of their chemistry, their harmonies, and Dolly's irresistible charm. By the early 1970 seconds, she stepped out on her own, launching a solo career that no one could stop. In 1973, Jolene became an anthem, followed by I Will Always Love You, a song that would go on to conquer the world. And yes, Whitney Houston's version came years later, turning it into one of the biggest songs of all time. But make no mistake, Dolly still owns the rights. She made millions from that one song, and true to her nature, she never bragged about it. By the 1980 seconds, Dolly was everywhere in movies, on the radio, and even in merchandise. She starred in 9 to 5 alongside Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, proving she wasn't just a country singer. She was a full-blown entertainer. Then came Dollywood, her very own theme park, which opened in 1986 in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. While other celebrities were buying yachts, Dolly built an amusement park to give back to her hometown and boost the local economy. But don't mistake her kindness for naivety. Dolly is one of the sharpest businesswomen in showbiz. She's written thousands of songs, won multiple Grammys and Lifetime Achievement Awards, and even earned a spot in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Not bad for a girl who grew up without running water, and she hasn't stopped giving back. Through her imagination library, Dolly has donated millions of books to children around the world, ensuring every kid has a chance to read. Over the years, Dolly has maintained her image as sweet, humble, and far above the drama. But even a Southern angel has her limits. Behind the sparkle and smiles, there are stories of rivalries, people who clashed with her, underestimated her, or tried to take credit for her success. And one thing's for sure, Dolly never forgets. She may have smiled through it all, but behind the scenes, Dolly Parton faced her share of feuds, tension, and hurt feelings that time never erased. One of the earliest and most complicated involved the very man who helped launch her career and later tried to take control of it. What started as a powerful partnership soon became one of the most dramatic splits in country music history. Dolly Parton versus Porter Wagoner. Before Dolly became a global superstar, Porter Wagoner was already one of country music's biggest names, with his charm, showmanship, and a voice that could melt hearts. Porter had built a massive following by the 1,960 seconds. He was the star of The Porter Wagoner Show, one of the most popular country music programs on American television. On stage, Porter dazzled audiences with his flashy suits and charismatic energy. Offstage, he was sharp, business-minded, and deeply traditional. He understood what the audience wanted, and when he met Dolly Parton, he saw something special. When Dolly joined The Porter Wagoner Show as a replacement for the beloved Normaine, fans were not happy. Some booed her during performances, others sent angry letters, refusing to accept the change. But Porter stood by her, insisting she stay, and Dolly, ever gracious and determined, kept her composure and focused on proving herself. It didn't take long for their partnership to click. Their harmonies were magical, their chemistry undeniable. Together, they produced more than a dozen top 10 hits and became one of the most beloved duos in country music. On camera, they looked like the perfect team. But behind those smiles, cracks were starting to show. The problem: Porter didn't just want to sing with Dolly. He wanted to control her career. He managed her appearances, chose the songs they recorded, and made most of the key business decisions. And for a woman as independent and ambitious as Dolly Parton, that control wouldn't last forever. Dolly Parton wasn't just a pretty face with a sweet voice. She was a songwriter, a thinker, and a woman with her own dreams. Her ambitions reached far beyond duet albums and guest spots on television. For years, she played along, but as her fame grew, so did her desire to stand on her own. Eventually, the routine became stifling, and Dolly started writing songs that no longer fit the Porter and Dolly formula. What she wanted was simple: creative freedom and control over her own voice. But that was something Porter struggled to give her. Dolly later admitted that he had a hard time seeing her as his equal. In the beginning, he had offered her a platform, but as time went on, that same platform began to feel like a cage. Still, Dolly didn't walk away immediately. She knew how much she owed him and tried to make it work. But by 1973, the tension was impossible to ignore. A year later, in 1974, she finally left The Porter Wagoner Show. To the public, it seemed like a friendly partying, but behind closed doors, the story was far from over. 5 years after she left, Porter came back, this time with lawyers. In 1979, he sued Dolly for $3 million, claiming she'd broken their contract and owed him for management fees, show expenses, and a share of her post-show income. Dolly was blindsided. To her, Porter had been a mentor and an important part of her early career, so the lawsuit felt like a deep betrayal. The dispute turned messy with press coverage, rumors, and tension spreading through the industry. Yet, true to her nature, Dolly refused to fight dirty. She quietly settled the case out of court. Later, she said she never wanted to battle him. She just wanted to be free. The whole ordeal left her emotionally drained. Porter had played a big role in her rise to fame, and despite everything, she cared about him. They had made history together, but in the end, he couldn't let her go without a fight. In one interview, Dolly once revealed, "When I was trying to leave the show, I told Porter I'd stay 5 years. It had been 5, then 6, then 7. He just had such a hard time with it because it was going to mess up his show. We were so bound and tied together in so many emotional ways, and he just wouldn't hear it." That confession said it all. Their feud was never just about money. It ran much deeper than that. It exposed a side of Porter Dolly had never seen before, and it broke her heart. Still, as time went on, things began to change. By the late 1,980 seconds, after years of tension and silence, Dolly and Porter started to reconnect. Then, in 2002, Dolly did something no one expected. She personally inducted Porter Wagoner into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Standing on stage, she spoke about how much he had meant to her, even through the hardest times. When Porter was hospitalized in 2007 with lung cancer, Dolly visited him, and just a few weeks later, he passed away. Dolly was heartbroken. She held a private tribute concert at Dollywood, not for publicity or praise, but for the man who had helped launch dreams, even if he once tried to hold them back. That chapter with Porter Wagoner remains one of the most emotional and defining moments of Dolly's career, one that shaped her in ways most people will never truly understand. But the story doesn't end there. The next person on Dolly's list didn't just hurt her, she shocked the world. Dolly Parton versus Linda Ronstadt. Together with Emmylou Harris, they were the ultimate dream team. Three powerhouse women who joined forces to create the legendary Trio album. Their voices blended like magic, producing timeless hits that still give chills to this day. Behind the scenes, things weren't as picture-perfect as they seemed, especially between Dolly Parton and Linda Ronstadt. What began as a musical sisterhood nearly fell apart in the mid-1970 seconds, turning into one of country music's most talked-about feuds. At the time, Dolly, Linda, and Emmylou Harris were already stars in their own right. They admired each other deeply and dreamed of creating something special together. But conflicting schedules and record label politics kept getting in the way. It wasn't until 1987 that their long-awaited album Trio was finally released. The record was an instant success. It went platinum, hit the top of the country charts, and even won a Grammy. On the surface, everything looked harmonious, but in the studio, things were far from peaceful. Dolly, known for her quick and spontaneous style, liked to record songs in just 1 or 2 takes. Linda, on the other hand, was a perfectionist. She could spend hours fine-tuning every note. Emmylou often found herself playing the peacemaker between the two. Dolly later admitted that working with Linda felt like dealing with a studio diva who wanted to spend all day perfecting the smallest details. There were moments when Dolly said she wanted to yell at Linda out of frustration. Their creative styles just didn't mix, and the tension was obvious to everyone around them. Still, the trio gave it another try in 1994 with Trio 2. But record label disputes and scheduling issues delayed its release for years. When Trio 2 finally came out in 1999, the magic was there, but the friendship wasn't. The damage had already been done. What started as mutual respect and friendly competition between Dolly and Linda had turned sour. By then, Linda was openly expressing her frustrations, calling out Dolly's unreliability during the project. Their collaboration had made history, but it had also left behind a few scars. Linda Ronstadt didn't hold back when she spoke about Dolly Parton in an interview. She openly admitted that working with Dolly was frustrating, claiming that Dolly often canceled plans or showed up late to recording sessions. According to Linda, Dolly was never on time and came across as a little flaky, which made the collaboration difficult. But the issue went deeper than just tardiness. Linda felt that Dolly didn't fully respect the effort and dedication it took to complete the project. She believed Dolly was more focused on her solo career than on the group's work, and that attitude left a bitter taste between them. The tension that followed was strong enough to cause serious cracks in their partnership. Eventually, Linda made it clear she had no plans to work with Dolly again. She even said that Dolly's lack of professionalism had ruined what was supposed to be a fun, creative experience. Still, as the years went by, time softened some of the hard feelings. Despite all the drama, both women showed small signs of reconciliation. Even so, there was always a touch of awkwardness between them. It seemed neither of them truly forgot what happened. While they weren't openly hostile, they also didn't go out of their way to rebuild their friendship. The trio legacy still stands as one of the most iconic collaborations in country music. But behind the beautiful harmonies, Linda's words lingered, leaving a shadow over what could have been a lasting sisterhood. When you hear the name Elvis Presley, you think of the king of rock and roll, the man who transformed music forever. And then there's Dolly Parton, the queen of country, whose songwriting and storytelling have made her an icon, both legends in their own right. They nearly came together once. But what could have been a historic collaboration ended in tension over one unforgettable song. It all started with Dolly's timeless ballad, "I Will Always Love You," written in 1973. The song was deeply personal to her. It was inspired by her decision to leave her longtime mentor Porter Wagner and step out on her own. What began as a heartfelt goodbye soon became one of the most beloved country songs ever written, a piece of Dolly's soul captured in every lyric. When the song was released, it quickly became a hit, cementing Dolly's place among the greats. What she didn't know, however, was that Elvis Presley's team had taken notice. The king himself wanted to record the song. By the mid-1970 seconds, Elvis was still a dominant force in music, known for taking other artists' songs and turning them into instant classics. Naturally, Dolly was thrilled that Elvis wanted to cover her song. But then came the catch, a problem that would change everything. Elvis's notorious manager, Colonel Tom Parker, had a reputation for demanding huge portions of publishing rights for any song Elvis recorded, and that demand would soon put Dolly in an impossible position. At the time, Dolly Parton was just beginning to make her mark as a songwriter, but even then, she knew her worth. When Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis Presley's manager, demanded 50% of the publishing rights for any song Elvis recorded, Dolly refused to give in. For her, it wasn't just about the money. It was about respect for her craft. She had worked too hard to let anyone take advantage of her creativity. So Dolly stood her ground. She told Parker, "This is the most important copyright in my entire publishing company, and I can't do that." The decision wasn't easy. Dolly later admitted she was deeply hurt by the situation. She admired Elvis tremendously, but the deal felt unfair, almost like a trap designed to exploit her. According to Dolly, Elvis was very disappointed by her refusal. He genuinely loved "I Will Always Love You" and had been eager to record it. Dolly said she felt terrible for turning him down, but she knew that compromising once would open the door for others to take advantage later. What began as a business disagreement soon turned into something much more personal, though Dolly remained respectful. The fallout left a mark. She believed Elvis never fully forgave her for saying no, and it broke her heart. She later described him as a sensitive soul, saying that while he never confronted her about it, she could feel a change in their relationship afterward. In the end, though, Dolly's decision proved to be the right one. Years later, Whitney Houston's version of "I Will Always Love You" became one of the biggest songs in history, introducing it to a whole new generation and earning Dolly millions in royalties. Despite the tension with Elvis, Dolly has said she never regretted standing her ground. Turning down the king of rock and roll wasn't easy, but it was a moment that defined her strength, her integrity, and her belief in the value of her own work. Dolly Parton has always been known for her kindness, humility, and grace, a woman who rarely lets drama get to her. But in 2008, one managed to push her to the limit: Howard Stern, famous for his bold, controversial style. Stern had built his career on saying and doing things most people wouldn't dare. By the 1980 seconds and 90 seconds, The Howard Stern Show had become a cultural phenomenon, loved by fans for its raw honesty and criticized by others for its crudness. For many, Stern was fearless. For others, he was offensive. And in 2008, Dolly Parton became the target of one of his most shocking stunts. In a disturbing radio segment, Stern's team took clips from Dolly's audiobook, My Life and Other Unfinished Business, and edited them together to create a fake interview, one that made it sound like Dolly was saying vulgar, racist, and deeply inappropriate things. They spliced her real voice into phrases that mocked fellow artists like Kenny Rogers and Linda Ronstadt, and even made crude jokes about her own body. The bit was meant to be funny, but it was anything but. It was cruel, tasteless, and completely out of line. Stern's crew laughed it off on air, but for Dolly and her fans, it was devastating. A deliberate attack on her reputation. Dolly, who almost never responds to controversy, was heartbroken and furious. She released a rare public statement saying, "I have never been so shocked, hurt, and humiliated in all my life. I cannot believe what Howard Stern has done to me in a blue million years. I would never have such vulgar things come out of my mouth." She called the segment vile and even hinted at possible legal action, saying, "If there was ever going to be a lawsuit, it's going to be over this." The reaction was immediate. Fans were outraged. Country radio stations and longtime supporters flooded message boards and comment sections defending Dolly's character. Even people outside the country scene stood by her side. But Howard Stern didn't back down. He didn't apologize, didn't show remorse. Instead, he laughed it off, claiming it was just a joke and that people were being too sensitive. To him, it was satire, but to Dolly, it was deeply personal. And the wound it caused didn't heal easily. After that ugly incident in 2008. Dolly Parton and Howard Stern went their separate ways. Dolly, true to form, took the high road. She never lashed out publicly or insulted him in interviews. She simply moved on, letting her fans and the public speak for her. Still, the hurt lingered, and for years, people couldn't forget what had happened. But then, something totally unexpected took everyone by surprise. In 2023, Dolly shocked fans by appearing on The Howard Stern Show for the very first time. 15 years had passed since the scandal, and no one imagined she'd ever step foot in his studio. But Dolly had a mission. She was promoting her new rock album, Rockstar. And if there was ever a moment to push boundaries, this was it. To everyone's surprise, Stern was respectful. He praised her, calling her a legend, admiring her energy and incredible voice. For once, he held back his usual sarcasm. Still, the tension between them was hard to ignore. It felt clear that Dolly was there for business, not forgiveness. But once again, Dolly showed the world what grace and professionalism look like. She didn't dwell on the past. She rewrote the story on her own terms. Then came Jeff Tweedy of Wilco. It's rare for anyone to criticize Dolly Parton openly. She's practically untouchable in the music world. But Tweedy, known for his sharp tongue and poetic songwriting, didn't hold back. While he's respected for his contributions to alt-country and indie music, his comments about Dolly stirred major controversy. In an interview, Tweedy acknowledged Dolly's place in country music history, but quickly criticized her songwriting, calling it superficial. He claimed her lyrics lacked the emotional complexity found in deeper, more abstract songwriting. Dolly's strength lay in catchy melodies, not profound storytelling. He even compared her to other lyricists he considered more meaningful, suggesting that her success came more from her charm and image than the quality of her lyrics. In one now infamous comment, Tweedy said, "I love Dolly Parton. I know she wrote Jolene and I Will Always Love You on the same day, and I think she should have stopped after Jolene." While his words weren't meant to be cruel, they came across as dismissive, especially toward a woman whose songs have defined generations. Reports later claimed that Dolly heard about the comments and wasn't happy. For Dolly, songwriting has always been deeply personal. Her songs come from her life, her heart, and her experience is something that can't be measured by technical standards. So, to have another artist question, that must have hurt. But in true Dolly fashion, she didn't respond publicly. She didn't need to. After all, her songs continue to move millions around the world, from Code of Many Colors to 9 to 5. Her music has crossed generations and genres. Her influence as a songwriter is undeniable, and no amount of criticism can change that. Through every feud, criticism, and controversy, Dolly Parton has stayed the same, humble, resilient, and full of grace. She's faced everything from lawsuits to public insults, yet she always emerges stronger. So, what do you think? Which of these feuds left the biggest mark on Dolly's career? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you love deep dives into the untold stories of music legends, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update.